problem with their digestive system or other internal organs.
Tonight, horrifying, heartbreaking scenes emerging out of the Gulf Coast. Now we're watching birds and sea life die slow, gruesome deaths, drowning literally in oil. Hundreds are being pulled from the Gulf covered in thick black goo, and those are the ones that are still alive. America's heart is breaking looking at these images, watching these poor birds. You can see they're covered in oil. You can see their labored breathing. It's as if you can feel the weight of the oil on their feathers. The birds will die if this oil is not removed. Some may die anyway if they've ingested the oil. Volunteers are desperately trying to rescue as many of them as they can, but it's a slow process, and the birds just keep coming in to rescue centers, as CNN's Gary Tuchman found out.
Just before we leave, another brown pelican is brought in, drenched in oil, as bad as any bird these experts have seen.
This is a life and death struggle for these poor, completely innocent creatures. And I'm sad to say, it's only going to get worse. Straight out to Lisa Land with PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. Lisa, thanks for joining us. I got to tell you, I can't keep the images of these birds out of my mind. I want to cry. I look at them and I just want to cry. It makes me sad. Sad to be a human being. Does this catastrophe point to the importance of having respect for animals and nature? And does it prove to us that when we lose respect for animals and nature, we humans are also hurting ourselves?
Yeah, I think it does. And, you know, now, as you say, we're just starting to see these images. And it's appalling that the oil companies and the government inspectors have allowed this to happen. And for the most part, people feel like you and I do. This is devastating to people who are seeing these photographs, but most of us had no idea that inspections were so lax. As the story comes out and as we hear whether or not BP and government inspectors may be charged with willful fraud, dereliction of duty, maybe even bribery, PETA wants to see an additional set of criminal charges, and that's criminal cruelty to animals. Millions of animals are dying because of this. And let's be very clear about this. These animals are not coated in oil. They're drenched in oil. They cannot eat. They cannot drink. They are sitting there burning in the June sun. And those are the ones we see. Millions and millions will die. Millions will die in the following years. How this affects marine mammals like whales and dolphins is yet to be known. This is a catastrophe on a level we've not seen.
400 species of animals are in the Gulf, many of them endangered and threatened. BP's chief executive officer, Tony Hayward, made a lot of enemies last weekend when he said this. Remember this?
We're sorry. We're sorry for the massive disruption it's caused to their lives. And, you know, there's no one who wants this thing over more than I do. You know, I'd like my life back.
What a jerk. My big issue tonight, just crude. People are calling these statements by this guy gas. I think it's how he really feels. May 17th, 1 month after the oil spill began, Hayward said, "I think the environmental impact of this disaster is likely to have been very modest." He couldn't have been more wrong. Then on May 30th, he said there's no evidence that oil was suspended in large masses beneath the surface. Wrong or lying. You know, Lisa, this elitist corporate attitude reeks of arrogance and disrespect for nature, animals, anything that stands in the way of short-sighted profits. Is this a wake-up call for corporations to start weighing in the cost of environmental wreckage to their profit and loss statements?
I hope so, but they probably won't go there on their own. And it's important that the government step up and start inspecting these things and making sure that there are ways that we prevent it in the future. But more than that, we have to be less reliant on oil as consumers, and that's not just by driving hybrid cars. That's by adjusting our diets. By being a vegan, for example, you rely so much less on the oil companies that we're all furious with at this moment. We're furious with this attitude that lives, and I mean human lives and animal lives, are expendable, that profit comes first. We have to say no more. We have to say we shop locally. We eat organic, vegetarian food. We take the power back away from these corporations because so far the government's not helping us do that. This is, as we see it at PETA, the largest cruelty to animals case we have ever seen. We're talking millions and millions of animals dying slowly. Their death is painful, it is prolonged, and it was completely avoidable.
And I agree with you 100%. Those who are saying this is terrible and crying their eyes out, but they're using these plastic bottles that are petroleum-based, and they're gas guzzlers, and they're not thinking about how they conduct their lives. They're really part of the problem. This is a consumer issue at the end of the day, Lisa. All of us making more compassionate, more thoughtful decisions about everything we do throughout the course of our day can make these BPs irrelevant. But it takes willpower, and it takes waking up. And we've got to leave it right there. But I want to thank you, Lisa. You won't believe the story we've got next. It's a brigade to save sea lions.
Program, and the sea lions are actually being scapegoated. They are not the problem with salmon recovery. In fact, it's a human-based problem, as we all know. It's the dams, it's the overfishing, it's the habitat destruction, and the fish, the non-native fish that fishermen have introduced, which are killing the salmon. So what we're doing about it, there's 2 active lawsuits. We're actually challenging the federal government on their authority because they are protected species under the Marine Mammal Protection Act. We're also filing a lawsuit and an active lawsuit on the state level.
But tell me about the brigade.